The rain fell in gentle sheets outside St. Michael's Cathedral, as if even the heavens were mourning my grandmother's passing. I sat in the last pew watching my relatives file in with their designer clothes and carefully rehearsed grief. None of them had visited Grandma Eleanor in the hospital during her final days. None of them had held her hand through the long nights of pain. I had. "Look who decided to show up," my cousin Melanie stage whispered to her mother. I thought she was too busy with her career to care about family. I ignored them, focusing instead on the photograph of Grandma displayed near the altar. It was an old one from before the family business made everyone rich. She was standing in front of the original Montgomery's department store, pride shining in her eyes as she held the grand opening ribbon. Uncle Richard, my father's older brother and current CEO of Montgomery Retail Group, stood at the front of the church accepting condolences like a politician at a fundraiser. His wife Patricia dabbed at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, while their children, my cousins Melanie and James, posed solemnly for what would undoubtedly become social media posts about family grief. "Emma." My father's voice was cold as he approached my pew. "You should be up front with the family." "I'm fine here, Dad." He sighed, that familiar sound of disappointment I'd grown so used to. "Your grandmother wouldn't want Dash. Grandma would want me exactly where I chose to be," I cut him off quietly. "Just like she supported my choice to work in retail management instead of corporate." His face tightened. "Ah yes, my great sin, choosing to actually learn the business from the ground up instead of taking a cushy executive position like my cousins." "You're still working as a store manager?" Melanie had drifted over, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Oh honey, if you're struggling that much, I'm sure Daddy could find you something more appropriate at corporate." I thought about the conversations I'd had with Grandma during those long hospital nights. About the documents she'd given me, safely stored in my apartment. About the truth that none of them suspected. "I'm quite happy where I am, Melanie. But thank you for your concern." She sniffed, adjusting her Gucci handbag. "Well, don't come crying to us when you realize you've wasted your life. Not everyone can be successful like James and me." Ah yes, James and Melanie, the pride of Montgomery Retail Group. One head of marketing, the other head of operations, both promoted far above their capabilities because Uncle Richard believed family should run everything. The same Uncle Richard who had slowly been driving the company into the ground with his outdated policies and resistance to change. The service began, a parade of relatives giving eulogies about a woman they barely knew. Uncle Richard spoke about her business acumen, though he'd ignored every piece of advice she'd tried to give him over the past decade. My father talked about her family values, though he'd barely visited her in the past 5 years. When they asked if anyone else wanted to speak, I stayed silent. My memories of Grandma were too precious to share with these people. They didn't deserve to hear about our late-night conversations about retail innovation, our discussions about the future of the company, or her quiet pride in how I'd chosen to learn the business from the bottom up. After the service, the family gathered at Grandma's mansion for the reception. I hadn't planned to attend, but Grandma's lawyer, Mr. Peterson, had insisted it was important that I be there. I found a quiet corner of the library, away from the artificial mourning in the main rooms. This had been Grandma's favorite room, where she taught me everything she knew about retail, about business, about life. "There you are." Uncle Richard's voice cut through my memories. He stood in the doorway, glass of expensive scotch in hand. "Hiding as usual. Just remembering Grandma." He scoffed. "Please. You're probably wondering what she left you. Well, don't get your hopes up. This company needs strong leadership, not some retail clerk playing at business." I met his gaze steadily. "Is that what you think I am?" "I think," he said, walking closer, "that you're a disappointment to this family. Eleanor might have humored your little experiment in store management, but the real power in this company belongs to those who understand big business. Like you." I asked quietly. "With your failing stores and declining profits?" His face reddened. "How dare you? Montgomery Retail Group has never been stronger." "Really? Is that why our market share has dropped 40% in the past 5 years? Why our stock price is at an all-time low? Why our best managers keep quitting to work for competitors? You," he sputtered, "you have no right to question my leadership. I built this company into what it is today." "No, Uncle Richard. Grandma built this company. You've been slowly destroying it." He raised his hand as if to strike me, then caught himself as footsteps approached. James appeared in the doorway, his perfect hair slightly mussed from too much wine. "Dad? Mr. Peterson wants to talk to you about something." Uncle Richard straightened his tie, composing himself. "We'll finish this discussion later." "No," I said softly, "I don't think we will." As they left, I pulled out my phone and checked the message I'd received earlier from Mr. Peterson. "Everything is in place. The will reading is scheduled for next Monday. They have no idea." I smiled, remembering Grandma's words during one of our last conversations. "They think they know everything about business," she'd said, "but they know nothing about what really matters. Watch them carefully, Emma. Watch and learn." The reception dragged on, a parade of relatives asking pointed questions about my career choices while pretending to care about Grandma. I heard variations of "still just a store manager?" at least a dozen times. My father cornered me as I was preparing to leave. "Emma, this has gone on long enough. It's time to take your place in the family properly." "I've taken my place, Dad. Just not the way you wanted." He grabbed my arm. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing it is? Having to explain to people that my daughter chooses to work on the sales floor instead of in executive management." I gently removed his hand. "Did you ever consider that I might be learning more on the sales floor than Melanie and James learn in their corporate offices?" "Learning?" He laughed bitterly. "What could you possibly learn about business by folding clothes and running registers?" "Everything," I said simply. "I learn everything." A commotion from the main room drew our attention. Uncle Richard was standing on a chair, glass raised high. "Friends, family, fellow mourners," he announced, his words slightly slurred. "I know my mother's passing is a sad occasion, but I want to assure everyone that Montgomery Retail Group is in good hands. Starting next week, we'll be implementing exciting new changes to ensure our continued success." I thought about the reports hidden in my apartment, the ones showing just how bad things had gotten under his leadership. The declining sales, the mounting debt, the desperate attempts to hide losses from the board. Grandma had shown me everything during those long hospital nights. Had explained exactly why she'd made the choices she had. A toast. Uncle Richard continued. "To the future of Montgomery Retail Group. To family leadership." As everyone raised their glasses, Melanie sidled up to me. "You should leave," she whispered. "This is for real family members, not charity cases." "Charity cases? Oh please. We all know Grandma only let you work in the stores because she felt sorry for you. But that ends now. Once Daddy takes full control, things are going to change." I looked at her perfectly manicured nails, her designer outfit, her carefully cultivated image of corporate success. "Yes," I said quietly. "Things are definitely going to change." That's when Uncle Richard noticed me still standing there. The alcohol had stripped away his usual veneer of civility. "You," he shouted, pointing an unsteady finger in my direction. "What are you still doing here? This is a family gathering." The room fell silent. Every eye turned to us. "I am family," I said calmly. "Family." He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Family doesn't embarrass us by playing shop girl. Family doesn't question my leadership. Get out. You don't deserve to be here." My father stepped forward, but not to defend me. "Emma, perhaps it's best if you go." I looked around the room at my relatives, the aunts and uncles who had never bothered to understand my choices, the cousins who had mocked my career path, the family that had never been able to see beyond their own greed and ambition. "Of course," I said quietly. "I'll go. But I'll see you all next week at the will reading." "Don't bother." Uncle Richard called after me as I walked to the door. "Whatever pittance my mother left you out of guilt, I'll contest it. This company belongs to real business people." I paused at the doorway, thinking about the documents waiting in my apartment. About Grandma's careful planning. About justice long delayed but finally arriving. "We'll see," I said softly and walked out into the rain. The law office of Peterson and Associates occupied the entire top floor of downtown's most prestigious building. As I stepped out of the elevator Monday morning, I could hear my family's voices drifting from the conference room, already arguing about who deserved what. "The retail division should obviously come to me," Melanie was saying. "I have the most marketing experience." "Please," James scoffed. "Operations is the heart of the business. I should take control of the whole company." I paused outside the door, straightening my simple black blazer. No designer labels, no fancy accessories, just clean, professional attire. The kind you'd wear if you actually worked for a living. Ah, Emma. Mr. Peterson appeared beside me, a thick folder tucked under his arm. Right on time. Are you sure about this? I whispered. He smiled, patting the folder. Your grandmother was very sure. Shall we? We entered the conference room together. The chatter died immediately as everyone turned to stare at me. What is she doing here? Uncle Richard demanded. I thought I made it clear at the funeral that she's not welcome. Ms. Montgomery has every right to be here, Mr. Peterson said calmly, taking his seat at the head of the table. In fact, her presence is essential. My father shifted uncomfortably. Essential? Surely there's some mistake. No mistake. Mr. Peterson opened his folder. Now, if everyone would please be seated, we can begin. I took a seat at the far end of the table, away from my relatives' glares and whispers. Uncle Richard remained standing, his face already flushed with anger. Before we start, he announced, I want to make something clear. As CEO of Montgomery Retail Group, I have final say over any business decisions. Whatever my mother's will says about company shares or positions. Actually, Mr. Peterson interrupted, you don't. As of last month, you are no longer CEO of Montgomery Retail Group. The silence that followed was absolute. What? Uncle Richard whispered. Your mother removed you as CEO 4 weeks ago, Mr. Peterson continued, pulling out a document. She exercised her right as majority shareholder to make executive changes to the company leadership. That's impossible. Uncle Richard slammed his hand on the table. I would have known. The paperwork was filed privately, to take effect upon her death. Would you like to see the documents? While my uncle sputtered in rage, Mr. Peterson began reading from Grandma's will. To my son Richard, I leave my collection of business books. Perhaps now you'll finally read them and learn something about proper management. Melanie snickered until the next line. To my granddaughter Melanie, I leave my costume jewelry collection. Since you've spent your career focused on appearance over substance, it seems fitting. This is outrageous. Melanie shrieked. I'm the head of marketing. Actually, Mr. Peterson said, you're not. None of the current executive team retains their positions. Then who? James started, but Mr. Peterson was already continuing. To my grandson James, I leave my antique calculator. You'll need it to figure out just how badly you've mismanaged operations these past 5 years. The room erupted in chaos. My relatives jumped to their feet, shouting about lawyers and contests and family rights. Mr. Peterson simply waited them out. Are you finished? He asked finally. Because we haven't gotten to the important part yet. What important part? My father demanded. What else could there be? Mr. Peterson smiled slightly. The matter of who inherits Montgomery Retail Group. You could have heard a pin drop. As my final act as CEO and majority shareholder, he read, I hereby transfer complete control of Montgomery Retail Group, including all subsidiaries and assets, to my granddaughter Emma Montgomery. The explosion was immediate. What? She's a shop girl. This is a joke. I'll contest this. Mr. Peterson held up his hand. Before you waste money on lawyers, you should know that this transition is ironclad. Mrs. Montgomery spent the last 5 years planning it, documenting every detail of the company's decline under current management while simultaneously preparing Emma for leadership. Preparing her? Uncle Richard laughed harshly. By having her work as a store manager? Exactly. I spoke for the first time, my voice quiet but firm. Grandma knew the company was failing because none of you understand how retail actually works. You've never worked a sales floor, never handled inventory, never dealt with real customers. I pulled out my own folder, 5 years of careful documentation. Did you know our customer satisfaction rates have dropped 60% under your leadership? That our employee turnover is triple the industry average? That we're losing market share to competitors who actually understand modern retail? Those numbers are confidential. James protested. How did you dash? Grandma showed me everything. Every report, every metric, every failure. While you were all playing corporate politics, I was learning the business from the ground up. Just like she did when she started this company. Uncle Richard's face had turned an alarming shade of purple. I won't stand for this. I'll take this to court. Good luck, Mr. Peterson said mildly. Perhaps you'd like to explain to a judge why profits have declined every quarter under your leadership? Or why the board has received multiple complaints about nepotism and mismanagement. The board. My father's voice cracked. They know about this? They approved it unanimously last month. In fact, they're quite excited about the new direction Emma has planned. I stood up, smoothing my blazer. Starting tomorrow, Montgomery Retail Group begins a complete restructuring. We're modernizing our operations, improving employee conditions, and returning to the principles of customer service that Grandma built this company on. You can't do this. Melanie wailed. I have a lifestyle to maintain. You have a severance package, I corrected her. All current executives do. Generous ones because Grandma believed in taking care of family, even family that never took care of her. But what are we supposed to do? James stammered. I hear there are openings on the sales floor, I said quietly. You might learn something if you're willing to actually work. The next hour was a blur of threats, tears, and desperate negotiations. My relatives cycled through anger, bargaining, and finally desperate pleading. But Grandma's will was airtight, her documentation thorough, her planning perfect. By the time I left the law office, I was officially CEO of Montgomery Retail Group. The changes began immediately. I moved my office from the executive floor to a smaller space closer to the operations center. The expensive artwork and antique furniture were sold, with proceeds going to employee benefit programs. Uncle Richard tried to sue, of course. But faced with the mountain of evidence showing his mismanagement, he eventually settled for his severance package and slunk off to a smaller company that was willing to overlook his record. Melanie and James both quit rather than accept positions that would require actual work. Last I heard, they were trying to start their own boutique with Daddy's money. I give it 6 months. My father still won't speak to me. But the quarterly profit reports speak volumes about who really understood business. A year later, I stood in front of the original Montgomery's department store, just like Grandma in that old photograph. The building had been renovated, modernized, but her original vision remained. Quality products, fair prices, and employees who were treated with respect. She'd be proud, you know. I turned to find Mr. Peterson beside me, smiling. She already was, I said quietly. She told me that last night in the hospital. Said I was the only one who really understood what she built. A company is more than just profits, he agreed. It's about people. Your grandmother never forgot that. Neither did you. I thought about my relatives who had valued status over substance, appearance over reality. Who had never understood that real success comes from understanding every level of your business, not just the view from the executive suite. The store was busy, customers being helped by well-trained, fairly paid employees who actually enjoyed their jobs. Our profits were up 50% from last year, our market share growing, our reputation stronger than ever. Sometimes I visit our stores unannounced, walking the sales floor, talking to employees, helping customers. The other day, a new hire asked if I was a secret shopper. No, I told her, helping her fold a display of sweaters. I'm just someone who believes in learning the business from the ground up. Grandma was right. They never understood what really mattered. But I did. And that made all the difference. The portrait of Grandma still hangs in our flagship store. But now beside it hangs a simple plaque with her favorite saying, "Success isn't about where you sit in the boardroom. It's about understanding what happens on the sales floor." Words that my relatives never understood, but that I live by every day. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving the right person right. And sometimes, just sometimes, the person they kick out of a funeral ends up running the empire they thought they deserved.